Thank you very much for joining me on the Marketplace and welcome back. Now to our very first story. Mining firm Goldfield has been assessing 2018 as the year draws to a close. Executive Vice President for the company, Alfred Baku, says the company has sailed through some troubling times this year, but assured 2019 will be an exciting year for the company. Let's hear exactly what he's been speaking.
I would say it's been an eventful year. Eventful in a sense that we had to go through a legal process to actually justify our decision to change our business model from owner mining to contractor mining. We believe that it was actually in the best interest of the business, also in the best interest of the employees, the stakeholders, the government, community, and our shareholders. We were confident, however, we respected the legal process and therefore we remain calm. I want to say a very big thank you to the workforce for actually also remaining patient and working safely during the process. And I'm glad that in the end we came out victorious. The transition, I would say, we've actually transitioned quite well. We had some challenges. However, the management team did very well to work through all the challenges. And TAQA is on track to actually meet its budget production and also within the safety record or target that we set for ourselves. Daman project as well is also going very, very well, where we started doing a lot of waste stripping. We've been stripping waste over the last 2 years, and we've not been putting cash on the table. Daman, as we speak now, has already met its target for the year. So the team is doing very well there. And I would like to say a very big thank you to the GM and his team for their sterling performance. They also successfully did a very big shutdown where they changed the mill liners and then also the shell. So they did that within a record time, where they did it under the schedule, and then also they did it safely without any incident. So they've done very, very well. As we look into 2019, it's even more exciting for us, but let's look at it with a lot of optimism. Why? Because it's going to be the first year that through the Daman Reinvestment Project, we are going to go into cash positive mode. And the other one too is that we have Asanko, which is going to be at our disposal for the full year. So next year is quite an exciting year for us. And as we approach the festive season, I would like to urge all the workforce. Safety is our #1 value. And therefore, I'll urge them to work safely. And if they are traveling, they should travel safely. They should go and recharge their batteries. And then we'll see them next year fully charged. Thank you very much. I wish you a Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year.
So the year has been described as an interesting one. We could recount some eventful incidents, including the banking crisis. So with just a few days to end it, how are some economists assessing it? Let's hear the thoughts by economist Peter Quarty.
Well, the growth rates were good, although we had September numbers, but it looks quite encouraging and positive that come December we'll hit our growth targets. Inflation is also on a downward trend. That is good. What for me didn't work too well is the exchange rate depreciation. It depreciated by 4.2% in 2017, and in 2018, September, it had depreciated by 7.5%. That has repercussions on import duties because our import duties are priced in dollars. The tax rate is applied. So even if you give tax concessions to importers, to businesses, a 7.5% depreciation in the exchange rate is significant, and that can affect prices on the goods on the market, that can affect livelihood. So for me, that's one aspect that we'll have to tackle. But nevertheless, if you look at the other macro targets, fiscal deficit is low. Even we recorded a trade surplus. For several years now, we've been recording deficit. So the numbers look very good. What is lacking is the issue of jobs, how we translate these macro figures into the micro level, how we create more jobs. And I'm very hopeful that come 2019, all the policies and initiatives in the budget, government is able to fund money and implement them. I am hoping that if government is able to implement 70 to 80% of what has been stated in the budget, I believe as Ghanaians we will all be happy.
Now, the National Insurance Commission, NIC, has now set the first quarter of next year as a new date for announcing an increase in the minimum capital requirement for insurance firms. Earlier this year, the Commission indicated it would increase the level from the current 15 million Ghana cedis before the end of this year. There were some speculations it could have been increased to about 50 million Ghana cedis. But according to the Commissioner of Insurance, Justice Erufori, his outfit wants to fine-tune the new directive before it is outlawed.
Recapitalization hasn't been halted. It wasn't in my speech because I had met the industry just barely 2 weeks now, and we discussed it. And I told them it's something still in the pipeline. It's a work in process. So that's why I didn't mention it. But the industry is aware that minimum capital is going to be actually revised.
But you were very committed to increasing this figure before close of this year. So what happened?
Yeah, because it's a delicate thing. It's not an easy thing. There's a lot of calculation that goes into it. And it's dear to the heart of the industry. So we have to make sure that it's actually done and done well. As I stand here right now, this is about the 15th or 16th version of the minimum capital document. It's all because we just want to make sure that we're doing the right thing. We don't want to rush. Previously, I would have had a challenge actually giving you a time frame, but I believe that by the first quarter of 2019, the Commission should definitely come out with a statement with respect to the minimum capital requirement. I've had discussion with the industry, and I've given them an idea of what the board, myself and the board, what we have actually presented to the board. And as I said, there are a lot of things that goes into it. I don't know that we don't want to kill any company, but at the same time, we also want to have a strong insurance industry to actually retain a lot of foreign currency that is going out. Because the industry is not strong, we have a lot of money being repatriated out of the country. Yeah.
Let's turn our attention now to some developments at the ports. And the Ghana Ports and Harbours Authority, GPHA, has lauded the implementation of the paperless system and says it has been a huge success so far. The policy introduced last September was to improve turnaround time of doing business at the ports. Director General of the GPHA, Michael Luguje, says the paperless system has achieved 90% of its initial target, though more could be done to make it a flawless system. Michael Luguje made the assertion at a soiree organized by the GPHA for journalists in Tema.
The paperless system, prior to its implementation in September 2017, was met with some resistance from some stakeholders. But 15 months into the implementation, GPHA is praising the system as a huge success. Prior to the introduction of the paperless system, the total number of inspection agencies was 16. It has now been reduced to 3, helping to improve the turnaround time.
You know, long room used to exist, and you have long queues of crowds of human beings waiting to deal with single customs officers to process their papers for them. Today, the long room has disappeared from Teba Port. It is just a smaller unit that is based in the customs headquarters, just to deal with queries. Where the system hasn't been able to deal with your matter, then you call on the small, it is now a short room, I can call that at customs headquarters just to deal with queries. That alone is a significant milestone we could count to the credit of the paperless project.
One critical area in any efficient port is its infrastructure, and GPHA and its partners are pushing hard in this regard. Both Tema and Takoradi ports have seen expansion and upgrade of infrastructure to meet growing need in modern port operations. Michael Luguje believes this will help position Ghana as the gateway in the sub-region.
In terms of projects, I believe many of you drive around Tema Port, and those of you who got the opportunity to visit Takoradi Port or heard about it in the news, there are massive infrastructure development projects going on in both ports. The bulk terminals, we've introduced new businesses like the LNG handling in the port of Tema. Takoradi is seeing massive infrastructure development, with private sector participation, with agent entities like Ibistec. And then in Tema, we are all looking forward to the MPS 3 container terminal, which is going to give our port of Tema, just as the director mentioned to you, one of the state-of-the-art container terminals in modern times.
Meanwhile, the GPHA boss is happy container traffic has increased as compared to last year.
The total figures we have generally indicate, compared to 2017, we've had 2017 where we had a total of 11.7 million tons. That has increased to 13.7 million tons for Tema Port. Takoradi also recorded a similar level of growth. The statistics later on will be shared with you from a document that will be submitted to you. If you take our container traffic as well, last year Tema just barely made, total traffic for Tema was a little below the million TEU mark. This year Tema has achieved that, and combined with Takoradi, we should be looking at not less than 1.1 million TEUs by the close of this year.
The Ghana Ports and Harbours Authority hopes to start feasibility studies for a new port, the Keta Port project, next year.
It's live on the marketplace. Let's do one of our top stories today. And more than 50 customers of embattled gold dealership firm Men's Gold Company Limited have demonstrated at the company's Jolu headquarters to once again demand payment of their monies just a day before Christmas. Now, my colleague Nancy Emefa Chadosi was there. She recounted the incident and has joined me in the studio for some more updates. Nancy, welcome to the marketplace.
Thank you.
Now, so tell me, what were some of the sentiments, of the people who have really, toiled for their money?
Well, I've been following these people for quite a while. I mean, from the very beginning.
Exactly.
And today I saw a different, emotion. You could feel that, it's time for Christmas, and they want to spend money and the time with their families, but then they are gathered in front of Men's Gold. Exactly, big disappointment. And there was this woman who was actually crying. She was actually weeping, that she needs money. She even
talking about money, how much, for instance?
So one lady I spoke to says 756,000 Ghana cedis. Wow. That's all 7.5 billion old Ghana cedis. Right. Some say 400,000, 50,000, and these are huge sums of money. And for most of these people, the money is not even theirs.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's unfortunate.
Unfortunately, some of them actually went for loans. And invested there. Some actually
waiting for the returns.
There's this very woman I'm even looking for to speak to, who I understand that has cancer. An NGO donated money for her, and she placed the money there so that she can be using the profit she gets on it for her treatment, after the surgery. And now everything is locked up, so she cannot continue.
It's very, very disappointing. But were you able to speak with any of the management staff on this particular situation?
Well,
what have you been saying?
Well, management, anytime we go to the office, obviously the places are closed up, the places are locked totally, nothing. In fact, for the Jolu branch, for instance, I know that we've been told that the rent of the apartment ended December 3rd.
Okay, so it's a rented apartment.
It's a rented apartment. It's not even for them, exactly.
That makes it more dicey.
Very dicey. So I understand that at dawn, they go in and then they pack some of the chairs and the table. That's why the customers are even aggrieved. But we've been trying to speak to the management to get hold of them today. They said they're in a crunch meeting. We don't know who they are with in that particular meeting, but we're hoping that very soon we'll speak to them, because that they made some promises.
Exactly, I was coming to that. They promised to transfer some monies earlier.
Yeah. So you remember that they told them that you have to migrate to the online portal, and then you have to pay 5% fee for the migration.
Okay.
So for those who really needed their monies back, they decided, okay, let's trust these people again and invest in the online portal, so that by next week, Thursday, that was 20th, they will get, some of their monies back. And even them, they couldn't get it back. And so for that promise of even the online portal, it has become a mirage. It's become nothing. So it's like, so some are owing, some have their monies in Men's Gold itself, and now the other monies are locked up in the online portal again. So it's like
very, very
double.
Serious. So in your own estimation, do you think there's any positivity inside maybe early part of the next year?
Maybe. If you know that the court in Kumasi ordered that the
some
properties be sold. It depends on what actions will be taken. But they should just, I think they can just keep their fingers crossed and maybe pray and see whether they'll get their monies back. Thank you very much for that update. Nancy Emefa Jadosi is my colleague who's been following the men's gold saga. It's on the marketplace. Now, the Director General of the Private Security Operations Directorate, Assistant Commissioner of Police, ACP Francis Abuaji-Nyako, has cautioned that security firms risk not having their licenses renewed if they do not comply with using the new stipulated uniforms. He was speaking at a Dave's workshop for all stakeholders in the private security business in the Western region.
Were introduced to the prescribed uniforms for all private security personnel in the country. The new uniforms has logos of private security companies embossed on them. They are white or long sleeve shirts over a pair of ash khaki trousers with white stripes on both sides of the trousers. The Director General of Private Security Operations Directorate, ACP Francis Abuaji-Nyako, says the initiative will help enhance security and differentiate uniforms worn by personnel of state security agencies from those of private security.
Private security organization has been in existence for some time now, but we realized that their numbers were increasing, and we also detected some recalcitrant ones among them. The reason why we are trying to bring them together, because the laws say that they're not supposed to carry lethal weapons, and they are carrying them. So we want to sensitize them on the law, that they are not supposed to carry lethal weapons, even though the law is going, we are trying to transform the law. We are doing an engagement with the AG to transform that through the association. What we want to tell them is that they are not supposed to carry lethal weapons.
ACP Abuaji-Nyako gave up till next year for all private security companies in the Western region to ensure that their personnel wear the newly prescribed uniforms.
We hope to bring them together so that we will tell them that before you engage yourself in private security operations, you need to be vetted by the police, well trained, well satisfied. And then at the end of the day, you also comply with the law, especially the uniform regime. You see, the hallmark of this is that we don't want them to wear uniforms that are similar to the state security.
The Western Regional Chairman of the Association of Private Security also shared some thoughts.
It's quite challenging, because each and every one is used to his own uniform, and of course, it's nicer than what we introduced right now. So the challenge is quite, but we're trying to convince them, and also that is the main reason we have this workshop, to make them understand the use of the uniform, just to differentiate them from the police and the national security agencies.
The forum, which brought together members of Association of Private Security Organizations as well as other security agencies, was aimed at exploring issues pertaining to the private security sector.
Now, the success of government's free senior high school policy would largely depend on sustainable funding plan. That's the advice coming from the IMF Managing Director Christine Lagarde to government. The report highlights reasons for this.
According to the IMF boss, the free senior high school program should not be dependent on people's benevolence or donor support, looking at the way the cost of funding is expected to increase. She maintains that even though the program is a good one, everything must be done to ensure that sustainable long-term funding is assured.
It's clearly important that education programs be sustainable. You cannot offer and promise education to a child who is 7 and then 2 years down the road say, oh, terribly sorry, I've run out of funds, you cannot go to school anymore. So those education programs need to be primary, secondary, and ultimately tertiary education. The fact that there is this free schooling program in place now at primary and now secondary level is really excellent.
So should government tax more to fund the program? This is what she had to say.
If good friends want to partner and support, if I had the choice, I'd say, come on, join. But I think that the country has the strength and the maturity to manage its public purse and to make sure that there is enough properly paid to the programs that are going to help the country.
Do we tax more to fund it?
Sometimes you need to first of all look at your spending and make sure that you spend in the right place, that you don't waste any, that there is no leakages. That's the first thing.
According to government, the budget for the program is expected to increase substantially from 2019 as enrollment to the senior high school level also increases. But looking at government's challenges with revenue mobilization and the fact that one cannot be assured of continuous donor funding, maybe a possible increase in tax to deal with this or some cuts in some areas to support this policy might be the way out.
And before I finally take leave of you, about 60 firms have expressed interest in taking up bids in the country's new oil blocks. Government earlier this year opened its doors to accept bids for its new oil blocks, which it was hoping to auction. Sources say majority of the bids came from international oil firms. However, 2 of the bids were invalid. This is because they bid for blocks which were allocated to the Ghana National Petroleum Corporation. And that's it for the Christmas Eve edition of the Marketplace. Many thanks for watching. Have a Merry Christmas.